You are in the making. All new episodes air on Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We hope you enjoy. Please follow along. What are the common threads that ties all these different experiences together? Because is it a reason? Is it a season? Or is it just magic?
I don't know about magic, but certainly there is a reason. We purposely wanted them all to feel very different.
What's your secret guilty pleasure meal?
Guilty pleasure, I love processed cheese. What's one creative risk you've taken that scared you but changed everything?
The scariest and most liberating risk was when I stepped off from a traditional, comfortable corporate gig, paycheck, all that stuff.
How do you personally stay connected to your roots when you're chasing your new dream?
Roots don't hold you back. They hold you steady while you grow.
So, if you could create any legacy project, and there's no limit, what it would be?
I think I'm doing it right now with the Proper Group. I'm creating this platform that helps people at all levels of their career pivot into purpose-driven leadership. In the Making, out today, in print, digital, on Amazon. Get your copy today at amzn.to/4C5S365. The link is in the bio. Let's build something real together. In the Making. Hey, everybody, and welcome to In the Making, the podcast where we dive into the twists, pivots, and reinventions that shape our lives and career. I'm your host, Michael Betz, the author of the book In the Making, which explores what it means to embrace the beautiful and finished parts of our story. Today's guest is someone who has truly cooked up a life rich with creativity, risk, and reinvention. Chef José Salazar. From growing up between Colombia and Queens to becoming a James Beard finalist and one of the leading voices in Cincinnati and in the country's culinary revolution, José's story is about passion, persistence, and honoring where you come from while dreaming even bigger. We'll talk about creativity, heritage, the art of risk-taking, and what it means to constantly be in the making, in the kitchen, and in life. Welcome, Chef José.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you, and I can't wait to learn more about your journey. And you're in the making. We'll be right back. And welcome back to In the Making. I'm here with Chef José Salazar. So, José, you grew up surrounded by the incredible flavors of Colombia and the energy of Queens, New York. How did those early experiences first spark your passion for food?
Sure. Well, in Colombia, it's always just been about farm to table cooking. There really wasn't anything other than what was already grown locally. And so that really, I think, just gave me an understanding of how to appreciate what the land is giving you. And then growing up in Queens, I think I maybe took it a little bit for granted, but the train line, the 7 train in Queens where I grew up, is the most diverse part of the world. I think I read once that there's something like 145 languages spoken in that 5-mile span. So you can imagine the cuisine, the culture, and just how diverse it is. And I consider myself now very fortunate to have been exposed to all of that. But like I said, maybe I didn't quite appreciate it as much when I was actually there. But still, it really did influence the way I think of food and how important I think having that experience is to my cooking today.
That's amazing. Do you really reinforce that with your kids now to really step back and appreciate where they're at and when you guys go on trips and food scavenges and whatnot? And do they have the same mentality that you had just dad? No.
I mean, I do. I try, but kids are kids, and so they're just gonna be like, yeah, whatever, but certainly I try my best.
Well, that's awesome. So you're about to open up a new flagship restaurant downtown. Right before our prep, I was sharing that I drove past it, and it's just stunning. It's really made very antiquated building into something new and fresh. What does this next new chapter mean for you and for your restaurant group?
Well, I think this is my dream restaurant, to be quite honest. It's gonna have all the bells and all the whistles, and it's gonna be able to really facilitate me the ability to do everything that I've always wanted to do. The equipment, the space, the staff, the location. I mean, just everything that this restaurant is to make it that much better for what we want to do.
That's amazing. And the nice thing is it's right across from Mita's, which is your other downtown location. So it's probably going to be a lot more efficient to be right next to each other when you've had to be kind of spread a lot of different places because you're only one man. So I hope operationally that's going to be an awesome thing for you as well.
Absolutely. I was joking that we should have kept one of those skywalks so I wouldn't even have to go outside. I could just it's just transform.
Well, especially with the Colombian roots, it's kind of cold here in the winter. So, but I guess it's cold in Colombia and some parts as well. So move on. Like, how do you balance tradition, paying homage to your heritage, innovation when creating new menus and spaces? You got to keep up. You're always on lists. You're always featured in magazines. So there's got to be a balance. Can you tell me what your philosophy and methodology is?
There really is. I think you really touched upon it right there. Is on one hand, I have to really think about my mentors and pay homage to them. And we're calling my grandmother one of my mentors. Then, of course, I have to. My mind always harkens back to my experiences, that I've had either professionally or but for me, the seasons really drive my cooking, and the farmers, the foragers, the artisans, what they're bringing to us on any given day really influences the cooking that we're doing.
That's how it's done. At the end of the day, it's give to what you're given and make it special, make it unique. And yeah, you may have, heritage all around the world, but at the end of the day, you still got to stay true to where your audience is. So that's cool that you're able to kind of blend those balances, bring a little flair, and then innovate. And you are such an innovative chef. I've been fortunate to go to every single one of your restaurants many, many times, and I'm obsessed. I still miss the Salazar burger though, but I hear it's back at.
Well, we have a burger at Safi that's similar, but we will reintroduce the Salazar burger or a version of it, I should say. I don't want to say the exact same burger, but there's that and the oyster slider that are definitely making their way back. Other than that, we haven't fully figured out
Hey, you gotta
exactly.
build it first.
You got to build it first.
No,
And for those who missed the veggie burger at Goose Elder,
oh, so good.
that one's probably going to make the menu as well.
That was really hard. I know this is going off our talking points, but that was really hard for me because I feel like, yeah, probably during the week it wasn't, the best. And then COVID, you opened it up and then COVID happened. But like,
Yeah.
I was there every Saturday and Sunday.
I know. You were such
And
a surprise.
I loved that bar back there. I write in my book a lot in regards of even when it seems like it's the right thing, sometimes it's not the right time. And I think like that kind of was I've seen so many chefs fail because they leaped onto something, thought that it'll come back, it'll bounce back. And I've heard this through the grapevine. You didn't close it to close it. You closed it because you saw the bigger vision of what you can do in this new restaurant and you needed to retool your energy into this. Do you maybe kind of want to talk? Yeah, like that's kind of a cool story.
No, that's 100% right. Goose Elder was a phenomenal project. Our landlord's model group were spectacular. We were in love with being right across from the market. Like I said to you earlier, how important, seasonality and having those relationships with the people who produce the food, who grow the food, who make artisanal products. I mean, that was one of the things that motivated me to be in that space. But yes, timing was really, I think COVID certainly was the biggest factor that led to us, maybe not being quite as robust as we wanted it to be. But then ultimately, when we decided to move Salazar, you're right, that was the defining moment. And focusing our energies on that we knew was going to take up a lot of our time. Unfortunately, something had to give, and unfortunately, it was Goose Elder. And I love what we were doing there. And I think maybe once a week somebody comes up to me and says, "I miss Goose Elder. I miss such and such from Goose Elder." And so, yeah, R.I.P.
So, you're a mentor, and I know you had a lot of mentors. I talk in the book that, some of the best advice I got is from my personal board of advisors, and that's professionally. That's like when I'm buying a house, and these people I collected all around. Some people work for me, some people I work for, some were peers, some were just strangers that I met at probably one of your restaurants that I became friends with. What advice would you give to creators who are scared to start again, even after success?
If you're a creator and you're starting over, I think the ultimate advice I could give anyone is follow your gut, follow your heart. If you're doing things that you feel really inspired by, then it's almost a given that you're going to succeed because you're going to have the energy and the mindset of I'm going to do what it takes to make this work. And people are going to feel that energy. They're going to get behind you. You're going to have the support of your friends and family and colleagues. I think with any business, but I think once you get to a certain age, you really start to feel how important getting that soul in there is for the success of that business.
Beautifully said. You know, so one of the big themes in the making is learning how to hold success loosely, really celebrating it, but not letting it limit your, evolution. How do you stay, no pun intended, hungry for what's next without losing joy in what you've already built? 'Cause you've done a lot.
Well, I stay hungry in that I just love what I do, and so it really I've never lost that hunger. I've never had to necessarily reinvigorate that desire to do what I do. I am probably more passionate today than I was 20 years ago or 25 years ago when I first started cooking. And part of that is, and I know you're probably going to ask a question related to this, but is passing that information on to the next generation and being that mentor and working with people that are so much younger, but also seeing that energy and that vibrancy that they bring to the restaurant. That really motivates me a lot.
That's amazing. I think this is one of those things where it's all about community. I've never really been in the hospitality industry, but I do pay homage a lot and I see how you all support each other. And I do want to state that, like, how you supported your team by doing the meals for them and their family, not just the team. And then how you thought it should be fair that everybody gets compensated based on the work they do and adding the kitchen gratuity and all of those different things. Maybe not the sexy, front of the house. So I just think that's an amazing thing that you have established and kind of set the standard. And I wish a lot of people in this industry did more. So you should be really proud of that. So the key takeaway from this segment is real creativity means honoring your past without getting trapped by it. We'll be back with Chef Jose Salazar here in a moment. Welcome back to In the Making. And guess what time it is? My favorite time. Editor, cue up the fire round questions. So, quick fire round. Jose, what's a favorite dish to cook for your family?
Favorite dish to cook for my family is anything that's in season. I know we keep going back to what's in
Hey,
season.
you're on brand, if anything.
That's it. And whatever's quick and delicious and typically very easy to clean up. I hate cleaning up. I love cooking. I hate all the mess that comes with it.
Maybe that's why you became the chef, because if in a good relationship, if the person who's cooking shouldn't have to clean. Just saying.
Right.
Maybe that's why I'm single. Question number 2. What's your secret guilty pleasure meal? And if you say something fresh and in season, I'm gonna slap you through the screen.
No, actually, actually, no. Guilty pleasure. I love processed cheese, like Kraft slices. I love them. I just love how they melt. So pretty much anything with a Kraft slice on it.
And you can, like,
But a
make little squares and it can be like a snack, so it feels like you have more.
grilled cheese sandwich probably.
Okay, question though. Do you use mayonnaise to get the, crust really good?
No, I've heard that, and I've never actually tried it. I keep saying I'm gonna try it, and I never have. But it's just good old fashioned butter works just fine too. And
Gonna be
but I love mayonnaise too. So, but then there's the whole argument of which mayonnaise, right? Like, are you a Duke's person, a Hellman's, a Kewpie? I don't know. I know I have my favorite. There's a lot of sense among people when it comes to mayonnaise. So, which one would you use for your grilled cheese sandwich, Mike?
Hellman's. I just like, yeah, I did the Atkins diet back in the day and it had like no carbs back then. And so like I just have embedded in my, and it tastes good. But anyways, okay. Okay, this one's a little controversy. And I hope it's a soundbite in a year or two when one of these happens. What's more nerve-wracking, when you first opened your first restaurant or your first James Beard nomination?
Oh, I thought you were gonna ask me something crazy. I'm like, no, that's an easy one. The first restaurant. Yeah, the awards are great, and certainly when you're nominated for a prestigious award, you're anxious and you're hoping you're gonna win, or whatever. I mean, all the pomp and circumstance that goes around it is exciting, but there's nothing more stressful than and especially because it was my own money, putting all my money
Yeah.
into a business and knowing that the pressure is on to make sure that it succeeds, and I can't equate anything more stressful that I've ever done in my life aside from that.
That's amazing. And so you talked about foraging, and I obviously know you have roots down in South America, but what's a dream destination for a food adventure?
Japan. Japan is number 1 on my list. It's always been way up there, and I mean, it's expensive and it's far, and so
When
to
do you
get
have
away
time?
right, to get away, I think for me, a vacation is like anything over a week, week and a half. It's kinda like, it's tough because, I can't really leave the businesses that long. I just couldn't necessarily do it comfortably without stressing myself out. Plus, I get homesick. I really do. I'm somebody that really likes having my stuff. And
Yeah.
if I'm gone for more than a week or 2, I'm kinda like, "All right, I'm ready for my bed." Like, I guess
And that's a
but
long
Japan
flight. That's a long
yeah,
flight. It's like if you're not there for more than 2 weeks, it's like, and I would just like spend a month because you're already over there, so go see the rest of Asia, you know?
that that
Um,
that's basically what I was gonna say. Like, so it's something that's gonna happen. I just need to time it just right where I can spend a month in Asia, and Japan is gonna be that, like, main destination.
it's amazing. It's like the most calmest Zen place in the world, and
I'm
just
sure.
people are so nice. Okay, last question. This one's fun.
Mhm.
If your journey had a signature dish, what would it be called?
Oh, man. Signature dish for my journey, probably frankfurters de foie gras.
That's
You
amazing.
know?
with a with a
Uh,
with a slice of Kraft cheese.
I like hot dogs with cheese on it. I know, like,
I love hot dogs. Like, I
yeah,
don't care. Haters on the internet can hate. They're good.
right.
Um, okay. Well, Jose, thanks for doing that and entertaining my annoying questions.
My pleasure.
In the Making, out today in print, digital, on Amazon. Get your copy today at amzn.to/4C5S365. The link is in the bio. Let's build something real together. In the Making. Welcome back to In the Making. I'm here with Chef Jose Salazar, a good friend, an amazing restaurateur, and just a great human. So, Jose, you built such an incredible group of restaurants. You had Salazar. I'm not going to go back to that burger and mope and cry about it. You now have Mita's downtown, Daylily, and now Safi, one of my favorite Saturday and Sunday spots, but all week too. But you know why I like the Saturday and Sunday? Those oysters. What are the common threads that ties all these different experiences together? Because is it a reason? Is it a season? Or is it just magic?
Oh, I don't know about magic, but certainly there is a reason. We purposely wanted them all to feel very different. My personality is pretty eclectic. I like a lot of different things. I'm influenced by a lot of different things, and I wanted to convey that through all those different concepts. And I think part of why we even make a space is the location itself, I think, kind of drives what should be there, and what do people want, what do I think is interesting and cool, and what's going to fit into that space. But what ties them all together, I think, is the ingredient, making sure that we're focused on good quality ingredient and using what is best. So yeah, in some ways seasonally too, right? Like is it a reason or is it a season? I guess it's all of those things. It's the seasonality certainly dictates a lot of what we do, but I'm very proud to say that they're all very different and have a personality of their own. I guess they're like children, they all kind of say something unique, but they're all my children, so there is some similarity in that way.
That's amazing. So I think it's you want to stay relevant, you want to stay fresh, but you want to stay true to your passion, true to your skill set, and always challenging yourself, which is like awesome. Like I left corporate America because I was sick and tired of being in a stale environment. And I think it's translatable. It's like you can have all the success you want. And you see many chefs do this where they'll have like best experience, most customers, lines out their door. And then the next day they decide to change concepts because they're not challenged. And at the end of the day, you're an artist. So I think that's such a cool, rad thing that you've been able to do, because it's not easy for a lot of people that when you have something good to just say, okay, to the next thing. So
You touched upon that really is that I, like many chefs, we get bored. We don't want to ever feel like we're being complacent or, that takes the fun out of it. That's when, it starts to become a job and not
yeah,
something that you're passionate and in love with. So yes, being innovative, being creative, taking some risks, that's kind of what excites me and that's what it's all about.
that's awesome. So going back to like young Jose days, was there a specific dish or something like what you said your grandmother was an influence in your life, or a moment that made you realize that this could be a career, not just a love? Like, have you always been great in the kitchen, or did it take a lot of time to learn?
No, I wasn't always great in the kitchen. I got my start in restaurants working front of the house. So I was a busser, a waiter, a bartender, and it was gradual. My transition into the kitchen. Well, gradual in that, when I was serving, I would often get in trouble for spending too much time in the kitchen. They'd have to come and pull me out and say, "Hey, table 21 needs another drink," and I'd be in the kitchen trying to understand how they're making the food. And it wasn't until my very first day that I actually worked in a kitchen that I realized this is it. This is what I want to do. This is like a light bulb just, went off. And ever since then I've continued to fall deeper and deeper in love with what I do.
That's amazing. That's passion. That's just, and it's kind of crazy. And I'm going off the cuffs of but like so many, even though we are in two completely different industries, that's kind of like my last 5 years, working for a big company. I started getting like the Sunday scaries and I wouldn't be able to sleep and I dreaded Mondays. And now that I'm like, I own the proper group and I'm doing my own thing, I told myself, I'm not going to have any meetings scheduled until noon on Mondays. That's where I can come in with a peace of mind. But you know what I find? I love what I'm doing. I'm having fun again. And I'm up at 5 a.m. every Monday getting ready for my week because it allows me that spontaneity, but also that time to be creative and uninterrupted, which a lot of people are like 5 a.m. that sucks. But I see a lot of those parallels. So that's amazing. And I think we stun ourselves in growth by boredom. And so I think like you have it right 100%. So moving on, I'm going to butcher the name. So Jose, I have a question. How did your time training under legends like, Jean George and Thomas Keller shape your approach?
Yeah, training with Jean George and Thomas Keller was, I think the biggest takeaway I have is seeing the ingredient and the freshness again, really having these farmers come in with dirty fingernails, with things that they had just pulled out of the ground, having a forager with a big basket of mushrooms and really experiencing the freshness and what a difference that made. And that's something that's, always been now a motto of mine is to try to get the best ingredients, the freshest ingredients. And inherently, you're going to make better food. Inversely, if you start with shitty ingredients, no matter how talented, even if you're John George and Thomas Keller, you're not gonna be able to make really, really delicious food. So that's probably my biggest tip for anyone who's like, "I wanna learn how to cook. What should I do?" And I say, "Start with good ingredients." The shopping is half the battle. If you're a good shopper, you're gonna be a good cook.
So with that being said, and you're such a you've brought up multiple times, it's all about the ingredients, it's all about, what the local harvest is. Have you dabbled in like trying to be, I don't want to say a farmer, but have you dabbled on doing your own, or do you stick with being in the kitchen and celebrating those who do that?
Well, yes, I certainly celebrate those who do that, and I give them a ton of respect because I have tried to grow things and I've had some success and whatever success the little bit I've had, I attribute it to luck. I'm not really much of a gardener. Like we mentioned earlier, I grew up in Queens, New York. We didn't really have a space to garden. So I've had to, experiment and then sometimes I get lucky, and it's kind of like I just thank the gods. I'm not much of a gardener, but I'm constantly trying to learn, and every year I get just a little bit better at it. So I just planted stuff this last week, and we'll see what happens.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's one of those things that, just like cooking. I'm not a great cook. That's why I go to a lot of restaurants, but when you cook something or you grow something and it turns out right, you're like, I can do this. So I totally kind of get it. But yeah. So we moved to Cincinnati around the same time. I moved obviously from Louisiana, New Orleans. You from New York, but and kind of in a time where Cincinnati was kind of in the up and up. It wasn't for a while, especially downtown, and you chose to, grow roots in downtown. What made your family choose Cincinnati, and how did you know it was the right place to build?
To be quite honest, Mike, Cincinnati chose us. We got a call from the Cincinnatian Hotel asking if we wanted to come out and do a tasting. And I honestly wasn't really all that keen on Cincinnati. But not because I thought there was anything wrong with Cincinnati. Let me clarify that, but only because I didn't know anything about it. And it was a little further away than I think I was considering. The places we were considering were all, so the call comes in. I said, all right, I'll go to Cincinnati. I'll do a tasting, and didn't necessarily think it was going to be the place for us. But when I got here and I did that tasting, I was very, very pleasantly surprised with what I saw. I loved the architecture. I loved the vibe, it was a city, but it wasn't as crazy as New York. And so it had the best of both worlds. And I thought, okay, this is the place that, I could see myself in. But didn't necessarily think we were gonna stay forever, and here we are 16 years later, so obviously really was the right place, and I'm very happy that I'm still here.
That's awesome. Yeah, Cincinnati's just, it's really impressed me, and like it keeps people like you and I here because it is accessible and people are kind. But you got I always say it's got the quickness of the East, but the kindness of the Midwest and the hospitality of the South. So we're kind of just a melting pot of a lot of great things. And we have a long ways to go, but I think it's people like you and I and our friends staying here and really putting a dent in the map that is what continues to make it great. So I love that Cincinnati's accepting new views, new folks. So I love that. So in the making, I talk about the environments we grow up in, messy, rich, complicated, leave fingerprints on who we become. How do your roots show up in your food today?
Well, at Mitas in particular, I think you really see a lot of my roots coming into the cooking. Some of those dishes and those recipes are based off of things that I learned from my family members. When we were first opening the restaurant, I was constantly calling back and saying, how do I, because this isn't cooking that I did professionally or even on an amateur level. I'd never made an empanada until we were about to open the restaurant. And so I had to call home and say, help me, guide me through this. My training was in, this very fine dining world, French and Italian, technique. And so it really made me kind of delve into that culture and experience it on a deeper level more than I had really considered before. So it was a great experience, and it continues to be. And I'm forever learning about Latin American cuisine, and that's just been like a phenomenal experience. We're almost at the 10-year mark, and I'm still, every menu change, it's kind of like this new ingredient or new technique. So that's one of the things that I love about my job.
That's really beautiful. And like, what a proud moment for your family. Because sometimes a lot of the people in the culinary world can be kind of snobby because they've been trained by like what you just said. But what a honor to pay homage to, your roots and, that hey, I may have all this expertise, but being vulnerable to be, hey, I need your help. So, wow, that's awesome. Sometimes where you come from is the best seasonings for where you're going, and you are true to that. And Jose, we'll be right back with more In the Making. I'm back. It's Michael Betz, your host of In the Making podcast and the proud president and managing partner of the Proper Group. The past year, transforming the Proper Group has been one of the most exhilarating and rewarding experiences of my life. But when people ask, what is the Proper Group? My honest answer is, we don't fully know. Well, let me explain. We do know. We're just building something different. The Proper Group is 70% baked. Our founder, Larry Burns, laid the foundation. Now we're evolving into an elite collective of fractional C-suite leaders driving real sustainable growth. What we're not is a bloated consultancy with junior talent doing the real work, or a siloed agency only focusing on one or two functions. What we are is a cross-functional growth accelerator, a hands-on execution partner embedding with leadership teams. Because when companies grow, they grow fast. And without the right foundation, that growth won't last. That's where we come in. Let's talk, explore what we're building, and see if this would be the right fit for your team. We're just getting started, and come along for the ride. The Proper Group. We're on the move. Visit us at www.theproper.group.
All right. Welcome back to In the Making podcast. This is where I turn the mic on Mike.
Whoop, whoop. Chefs are funny.
All right. So now it's my turn, right, to flip the mic. And since we're talking about creativity, reinvention, and building a legacy, I got a few questions for you, Mike. What's one creative risk you've taken that scared you but changed everything?
Well, that's really kind of chapter 5, definitely, when I decided to take the leap, and I was kind of forced to do it. The scariest and most liberating risk was when I stepped off from a traditional, comfortable corporate gig, paycheck, all that stuff, and took a sabbatical. Not because I, had a grand plan, but because I had no plan, because I didn't see that happening. And sometimes life just happens, unfortunately. It was after, about 5 C-suite job offers, which disappeared in 1 week, which sucks because a recession happened. And, I'm someone who has never had to interview for a job, technically. I've always been recruited. Had to go through the phases and everything like that. But I left companies because they recruited me. So it was a whole new world for me. I went from feeling in control, stable, into like a void. And it's not easy because when you're not used to being told no, that's a big identity crisis that I've had. And so I'm glad it happened though, because now I feel like I have thicker skin, and I wouldn't have wanted this to happen when, say I was 50, because I wouldn't have been able to be as resilient, I don't think, because everything was perfect to that. And I think we're so much in still growth mode at this pivot in my life. I'm really becoming, I say your 30s are still your kid becoming a man into your 40s. And I turned 40 this year. So I can truly say that. So, what came next after that sabbatical wasn't a vacation. It wasn't a reckoning. I told you this before the meeting. I had to ask myself who I was without a title, a job, a big budget, a big company, the corporate expense card. And really what was my next move, and instead of rushing into things, I had to do the work, understand who and what I wanted to be in this next chapter of my life. So I gave myself permission. And sometimes you just have to give yourself a permission slip because, at the end of the day, I didn't get those C-suite jobs because they froze. And I knew this was in September, and I knew that they weren't going to be, no jobs were going to be happening because the way that the market was volatile and we were in a mini recession. And so I kind of was like, I'm going to give it a risk, but I'm also going to remind people kind of the badass I am. I've had all these big titles, had these success early on in my career, but sometimes people don't know how the sausage is made. And so really it's kind of one of those things where, I started talking. I talked to a lot of people. I told you this, 150 people, coffee dates, long walks, messy conversations, and slowly a new version emerged. One, I realized a lot of people were in the same situation where they feel stuck because they're comfortable in a role, but they need that role because it has a stable paycheck and they have kids, they have a mortgage, they have to put people through school, they have student debt, all these things that I had some of those things, but if I wasn't, physically and mentally and emotionally pushed, I don't know if I would have done it. So I say really after a lot of those conversations, I found people with big ears, big mouths that could remind people of who I am, what I am. And that was the original goal because I thought home, safeness, I'm going to go back into corporate America. But what I found out is a lot of people are in the same boat as me. So this is someone telling me something that I need to be looking at different things. And that's really where the, genesis of the proper group came. It's like, hey, it's hard to start your own company. Why don't I find a lot of people like me who may be at this level of my life, their life, the next level, maybe finding their second or last act? And how about we do it together and not going alone? So that's really where we created, the proper group and our collective, which we're changing the game when it comes to consultancies and really changing the game when it comes to helping small and medium businesses to get to their next level of growth. That leap, no one saw it, but it changed everything.
Well, it sounds like that unfortunate that you mentioned actually turned out to be a fortunate. And as someone who's known you for a long time, you are a badass. So
Thanks,
I
man.
commend you.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
All right. So let's move on to the next question I got for you. So how do you personally stay connected to your roots? You when you're chasing your new dreams, how do you really make sure that those roots stay at the forefront?
That's an awesome question. This one really hits close. I grew up in like the world's tiniest town, 7,000 people in Northwest Ohio. It was a great town. It's a place where one of those places where a lot of people don't leave. Parents were really selfless, resilient, hardworking, and taught me that success wasn't about money. It was about showing up for the community, showing up for those who show up for you. So the small town grit, I guess, never left me. Even now, as I help scale small and medium businesses all across different industries, I stay grounded by mentoring others, being involved in the community. I think you can live in cities that are maybe B and C cities, but it's up to you to make it an A experience. You talk about moving from New York to Cincinnati, and at first, when not visiting it, you're like, no, I guess I'll come here. But then when you see it and experience it, you're like, this is amazing. So whether it's through the Cincinnati Park Foundation or mentoring young professionals over coffee, those are the things that tether me to where I came from, because I had a lot of people believe in me. Like kind of what you just said, you're a pretty bad person. People said that to me. And sometimes you don't hear that or you don't see that. And you don't expect that. But when you hear it, it feels really nice. So, what I've always done and what I tell younger people and I tell older people, it's like find those around you who have done it, who've done something different, but are going to help you bring meaning to your life and help give you their years of experience, maybe a year of knowing them. Broom up all those different people. I call them my board of directors, scoop it under a rug, but use that, absorb it, be a sponge, and you will be so successful because of the years and years of those folks experiencing. And less of this, I do that a lot. And more of this is the most important thing. So they remind me why I started this journey in the first place. Roots don't hold you back, they hold you steady while you grow. And so I give everything from growing up to that small town and really giving me the grit, giving me the hustle, parents who really believed in me. I'm the baby of 6 kids, and, they did without so we could go to good schools and make our lives better. So, I think it's always important to really pay homage to those who built you. And those can be, the biological people, those can be your board of directors. And then just give it back, because you can whine all you want, but you're the only person that's going to change your situation. So, yeah, that's really how, I stayed personally connected to my roots while, chasing those new dreams.
Right on. That's great. I think what really stood out in that conversation just now was listening, and whether it be people who are more experienced or less experienced, but or your parents is really, taking advice, being open to listening to what they have to say, because a lot of people feel like they know it all and they, discount what other people have to say. And I think the most successful people are the ones who actually are open to taking advice or criticism. You have to sometimes look at yourself from other people's perspective.
100%. And like, it's hard to hear sometimes. Like, hey, Mike, don't be an alcoholic in my restaurant. Or Mike,
No, not at
don't
all.
be an alcoholic in my restaurant. But in all honesty, you want both feedback. You want the positive and the constructive, because that's what's going to make us grow and be better. So thank you.
Of course. All right, I got one more for you. So, if you could create any legacy project and there's no limits whatsoever, tell us what it would be.
You know what? I think I'm doing it right now with the proper group. I'm creating this platform that kind of think tank meets incubator that helps people at all levels of their career pivot into purpose driven leadership. And that doesn't always have to be with nonprofits. Yes, it can be, but it's also like, what is bringing intention? What's bringing meaning to me? But also, how am I giving that back out into the universe? I'm really trying to create a place where people can, reimagine their careers with the same energy that they would have, I guess, with a startup. I think what I'm trying to do is blend seasonality of people who've done it for big companies, but also provide the support and resources if they want to leave those big companies to be able to go do it still on their own, but with a group of like-minded people that have succeeded and had success at that same level, by also providing an environment that helps keep your mental wellness okay and in check. I want it to have a social impact. How can we, change the world? You kind of got to lean in. We talked about earlier, how do you blend traditional versus innovation? In my industry and just business development, if you're not leaning into AI, you're nuts. A lot of people say it just sucks the creativity out of you. But I wrote in my book, I wrote a bonus chapter just about this because I self-published. I had 3 publishers try to sign me, but they wanted to hold my book until September before the holidays. I didn't write a book to write a book. It's great if I make sales but I wrote a book because I needed to, build my brand. In turn would build the proper group's brand. And so I needed to get it out there. So I learned how to do it. Like we said, I didn't know how to do a podcast. I didn't know how to do a book. I still don't know how to do a podcast, but I'm trying with a good team and a good co-host who's also a chef. But really, I in my chapter I said AI is not going to take your job, but if you don't lean in, it may give someone else the opportunity to take your job. So I'm always about learning. So the big thing is I want this to be a movement, a space that, really proves, reinvention is not a risk. It's a right. I've seen firsthand how brilliant leaders burn out because they're trying to play by the old rules in the new world. Well, let me tell you, if we can say anything from where we are, both socially, politically, economically, we're a new world. So I think it's our book, our chapter to rewrite it. And what's right and what's wrong. I think we can create the new norms and the new, methods. And like what I'm trying to do of taking out traditional consultancy where they just come in, this partner, 30 years of experience, shakes hands and kisses babies. And it's a 24, 23, 22, 25-year-old who's never sat in my seat, who's actually doing the job, that is playing by a playbook and says, here's a 50-page deck. Now go execute it on your already taxing, exhausted job. So we're trying to change it. We're trying to, help automate them, help them learn to work smarter rather than harder, automate things that you can, but then also bringing them along to execute the growth. So I guess it's all about, planting trees where you never really sit under, but knowing we helped build that forest. So I like that analogy. And I can't believe I kind of just came up with that. I may have written some notes down, but that was a good one, because I do love making sure that we are building a foundation. And sometimes the foundation's the messy middle, it's the hardest part. But those roots are going to be what keeps you grounded. Those roots are going to be sustainable. Those roots are going to create systems. And so sometimes you don't see it and it takes a long time, that hard work, that upfront grit. In the long run, you're going to be like, I'm glad I took the time and energy to build it right. So I think my legacy project, I think, is in the making. No pun, and shout out to my book, but go buy you a copy. But I think like the cool thing is it's all about bringing the right people along for the ride. I'm smart. at certain things and I'm sometimes the smartest, but I'm not smart at everything. So I think it's the smart thing that I've done is bring the people who complement what I do and give them a chair at the table to let their skills shine because at the end of the day, there's enough pie for us all to eat. So I'll take over if that's okay, unless you have any follow-ups from that. But I think the big key takeaway, and thank you so much for doing that. That was beautifully done. But every reinvention starts, invisibly. I think long before anyone sees the leap or the push or the jump. But if you stay true, to your values, stay connected to your story and your roots, and build, with intention, you don't just create a career, you're really building a legacy. And that's something that I see you doing here in Cincinnati. I see that what I'm trying to do with the proper group. And I think there's something special about that. So, more to come with Jose in a moment.
In the Making, out today, in print, digital, on Amazon. Get your copy today at amzn.to/4C5S365. The link is in the bio. Let's build something real together. In the Making.
Welcome back. I'm here with Chef Jose Salazar. So, Jose, you're not just running restaurants, you're building culture. How do you nurture young chefs and staff while still growing yourself?
Yeah, good question. How do I do that? I think through osmosis primarily, right? To nurture people is really just to show them by example. The best way to lead someone is to get in there and do the things yourself and prove that you have that grit and that work ethic that you're expecting out of those people who are working with you.
I love that. If you could give advice to your younger self back when you were bussing tables or bartending in New York, what would you say?
I think the biggest thing I would say is keep your eyes and ears open. I like a lot of young people, we think we know everything and then we find out later that we didn't know shit and that we were cocky punks
Rats.
and I definitely was a cocky punk and I thought I knew way more than I did. So I wish I paid more attention. I wish I'd listened more. I wish I had my antennas up a little bit more.
I love that. Like, that's definitely a key similarity is, sometimes I have a gift gab. And so like as I get older, I realize sometimes it's better to be the quietest one in the room and be much more intentional and impactful than needing to just hog up all the air. So
Mhm.
in the making, I share how resilience isn't just about, pushing harder, it's about evolving softer. How has your definition of resilience changed over the years?
How has my definition of resilience changed over the years? Well, I mean, I'm older, so I'm definitely just by virtue of being old, I have to be physically more resilient. My body, tells me sometimes that I got to stop. And that's, I guess, resiliency is knowing when to slow down, knowing when to not push yourself too far. And while it's the physical that probably slows me down a little bit, it helps refresh my mind. It helps me, I guess, mentally on a more spiritual level, relax and calm down and gives me time to gear myself up for the next project or the next day. So learning to slow down actually helps with that resilience.
That's beautiful. And I'm actually going to be selfish. I knew we weren't going to ask all the prompts, but this one, I think just coming and building, you already had established roots in New York, but coming and starting new. And I know, your wife and family came with you, but how important is community to your philosophy? Not just in the kitchen. I think that's super important. And I know you've built an amazing community there, but beyond, because you're someone, anytime I have asked, just so you know, transparency, this is not kissing anybody's this is like during COVID, I'm like, Jose, can you help do this? Jose, can you do that? Sometimes you're like, I can't, but I will. You believe in community. And I think it's like one of those things that you believe in them, not just because at the end of the day, they're keeping the lights on for you. But I think it's like what I said in regards of like, you live here, your kids are being raised here. So you want it to be the best it can be.
Yeah, community is a lot of those. You pretty much just answered the question. It is
Can
all
you
those things.
repeat it? So I have your sound, but no, I just joking. Oh,
I mean, it really is all those things. It's being part of a community isn't just about dollars and cents. It isn't just about, what can I get out of this? In some ways I believe in karma, but that's not even really the main, driving factor. If you're in a community, if you're, meaning me, then I'm a part of it. And there's this kind of universe that we're all involved. And I think you have to be a part of making sure that we're all doing well. And so, yeah, I do what I can. There's many times where I wish I could do more, but I'm busy and I have but so much energy. And like I said, I'm getting old. So it's a little harder, but
Rhine wine.
but I really do try. And one of my latest endeavors is trying to find better ways to help feed communities, like literally and figuratively. But I was at a summit recently with the James Beard Foundation, and the takeaway is that we're going to really work to try to get an expansion on SNAP benefits, where restaurants can be a part of that. So people can come in and get a meal through a restaurant using their benefits. That's the initiative that I'm focused on right now. But man, I have a billion things that I want to be involved in, and I am involved in quite a few things. Sustainability, aquaculture has always been the really important thing for me, and it sounds like it's more broad, but I think it starts on the local level. And so, who am I reaching out to? I'm reaching out to the local politicians. I'm reaching out to people in our community to help this initiative, and then hopefully expand it out. Because really, it all starts with your own community and making sure that they're right, and then you can kind of grow it as time goes on.
And someone's got to start it, at the end of the day, like, and you may be like, oh, why, who am I to do that? But like, someone's got to start it. So I think that's so important to remember. Like,
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because there are times where I go like, well, little old me, what am I going to do? But if everyone thought like that, then nothing would ever get done, and we'd all be dead.
yes, I know. Okay, Jose, that rhymed. So this was amazing. We're going to real quick take one break and we'll be back before we end our segment.
In the Making, out today, in print, digital, on Amazon. Get your copy today at amzn.to/4C5S365. The link is in the bio. Let's build something real together. In the Making.
Welcome back. And it's sad, so I don't want to see you go, but it's Friday. I can't believe you gave me your time. It's literally 3:00 on Friday and he's going to kill me. I told him I'd get him out of here at 3. It's 2:58. Jose, thank you for your spirit, your creativity, your leadership. You're showing all of us how the best careers and lives are still in the making. Thank you for being a good ambassador for our community, a good friend to me, and just overall good human.
Well, my pleasure, Michael, and thanks for being an alcoholic in my restaurant.
Many more times to come. I hear a dirty martini in my future. Thank you, Jose. And have everybody go to his restaurants. They're amazing. If you haven't been, he's one of the friendliest people. He looks grumpy when he's in the kitchen, but he'll go say hi to him because he really likes to hear feedback, and usually it's always good. So go pay homage to his amazing establishments. Jose, have a great week, and we really appreciate you for being on In the Making.
Peace. Thanks again.
Welcome to In the Making podcast. Please like and subscribe and engage. We want to hear from you. In the Making is now available for digital pre-order on Amazon. Get your copy today at amzn.to/4C5S365. The link is in the bio. Let's build something real together. In the Making.